Hello and welcome back, everybody, for our second series of the day with Immortals Academy taking on opposite Rift FlyQuest Academy. We're already 2 games into the day, and I think the energy is just peaking right now, guys, because this match ahead of us is one that I'm looking forward to, because the last time we saw these teams was a historic moment for both of them. It was week 2, and it was the end of FlyQuest's losing streak when they got the 2-0, and it was the beginning of Immortals Academy's losing streak themselves when they got 0-2'd. So a lot on the line here between these two. Yeah, I checked the history books on this one, Rafa, but
kind of ended it bleak for Immortals, though.
yeah, hey, they brought it back though. They just beat CLG yesterday, so they're riding that high right now. True. So let's talk about it. Immortals Academy on the Rift right now. Joshi, I know that we had talked earlier. We did a segment at the beginning of the day where we talked about the different opportunities and different play styles that they can look at when approaching games.
Yeah, there's a big conversation about how this team should be playing because they had some good games at the beginning of the split, and then they were on the struggle bus for a little while, and now they're starting to bring it back once again so that we can see why a lot of these players have earned their place in the academy spot. And I like the little hand motions there coming up from Mark. But the question is, do you want to be playing around the the relative rookie Chad, or should you be playing around the veteran Arrow? And we have a lot more thoughts on that coming up, but we got to see what kind of version of Immortals we're going to be seeing today going up against FlyQuest.
Exactly, because FlyQuest might not know which player Immortals is going to look to carry through either. And as we look at FlyQuest Academy themselves, Rafa, the big story is, of course, the jungler UG having a very impressive turnaround from a rough couple of early days at the beginning of the split, but now gelling with the team, looking a lot better.
Dude, the Kiana coming through. Oh my God!
He's playing assassin.
That was a revelation
too. It's like,
yeah,
this guy's playing everything.
I mean, we talked about it before, right? When FlyQuest finally got a chance to let their players play something that is more aligned with their comfort style, UG looked like a completely different player. In comparison to the likes of the Jarvan and the Xin Zhao in the first couple of weeks leading up to starting off of our academy split. I mean, UG seemed unsure, not on the same page on when to pull the trigger, and then, especially when you're on those champions and things fall apart in the early game, as a jungler, your window of agency starts to run out, and so you feel pressure to be like, I got to do something, or I don't get to play the game anymore. But with the Kiana, you got to wait a little bit, and he popped off beautifully.
Yeah, we've seen that happen to a couple different junglers so far, where early game doesn't go too well, and they don't feel like they can be as impactful. But it's nice that FlyQuest are finding more stabilization. But, Josh, you teased it. When we bring the conversation back to Immortals Academy, there are different playstyles that they can approach here, because that's where Yuji's going to have to be on his toes. Does he have to worry about Chad carrying, or can he not be as concerned about the jungle and more focused on shutting down bot lane? Because Immortals Academy have 2 very different approaches that they've been taking so far, and we actually have a demonstration of that here as we look at some of their draft choices that they've made earlier on in the season.
Yeah, we get to see a lot of different versions of how these guys play, and this was a composition that they actually played up against FlyQuest when they ended up losing, unfortunately. But it is one of those things where we get to see one of the different ways that they are able to play, right? This is a way that they can look to play around Chad a little bit heavier. Because Yuumi is not the greatest, saddle pilot for the Jhin, right? You tend to want to put it on the Xin Zhao so you can actually run over a lot of different players. And when you pair it with the Orianna, suddenly you make Xin Zhao look really, really strong because he's going to be your primary engage. He goes in, he's buffed up by a Yuumi, and when you have the shockwave on top of it, it makes the game plan very straightforward. And you put all the tools into Chad's pocket in order to make a lot of their plays. However, it's not the only way that they can play. And as we touched on up against Cubby, while Chad has had some good games, they're not necessarily always winning off the back of him. And that's why I was supporting Arrow previously as we take a look at their composition that they played up against their wins versus 100 Thieves. Right, Pretty going right on back to the Enchanter, going over for the Ivern, and adding a Lulu on top of it suddenly means that this Jinx that you have a lot of space that you're creating for. You're building that pocket like we were talking about, just like in football, right? You got to keep your quarterback safe. This time it's all on Arrow. They put all the damage tools into his pocket, and he's stepping up to actually find them their wins.
And the funny thing for me, Rafa, I don't know if you noticed this too, we didn't even touch on concepts champions in both of those graphics. Singed and Urgot. It's like, it's weird. It's a rare time that those aren't the interesting parts of the draft, but that's just concept, right?
Yeah, I mean,
That's
concept has his unique champion pool, right? But I imagine going up against FlyQuest. Philip has some unique champions of his own as well.
His Aatrox is looking pretty terrifying. So let's start talking about FlyQuest Academy now and actually look at some of their past performances as well, because this is a team that seems to be surging. They had a really strong Super Week with an actual 3-3 showing there. And then, I mean, as of just most recent history, they did split the series against EGA, which pretty impressive in their own right. So FlyQuest, Rafa, they do seem to be on the up and up still.
Now, FlyQuest has to be playing through Diamond and UG. These two have been kind of the difference makers when they're the ones choosing the fights and engages. And when you see UG empowered to be on champions like the Kiana, I think after this series, we did not see UG get Kiana from any team ever again. And then, of course, Diamond pulling us or giving us our first Blitzcrank game of the Academy season, something that Chime wanted to add his name to as well in their series yesterday. And you can see how damn good FlyQuest look when their most experienced player is the one calling the shots.
Diamond, he's the Blitzcrank specialist. He's been actually piloting that one for a couple of years now. And a fun fact, if we're looking at Diamond to be a critical member from FlyQuest and Arrow to be a critical member for Immortals, those two are currently sitting right next to each other in Champs Queue Elo. 190 LP for Diamond, 185 LP for Arrow. So they're neck and neck. Again, put as much weight into that as you personally care about, but I think it's kind of funny to see that it's going to be a rivalry on the Rift today, but then also probably a rivalry on the Rift once we close out here and the players get back to Champs Queue. But I am hearing that we're getting ready for Champion Select. So Joshi, final thoughts on the matchup before I send it off to the two of you to get us ready for Big Ban.
We'll get to see which one of these teams is still trying to make their way towards the top. They are both trying to contest for that 6th spot in order to make their way to a guaranteed slot in Proving Grounds. And as we're in the second half, it is going to be very important for both these teams to identify what style it is that they're going to try and play in order to make sure that they can start picking up these wins, because we disincentivized talking about them in the first half. Now we're starting to pay a little bit more attention because results are starting to matter more.
The rookies are finally coming into their own. It was a rough couple of first weeks for UG and Spyrax, two players that we had a lot of, I don't want to say expectations for, but we had a lot of hype around. Spyrax having great pop-off performances as a mid laner for the collegiate circuit, as well as Proving Grounds over at Maryville University. And of course, UG, while not getting many stage games over at Bethany, he was a solo queue monster. And I think Cubby has, talked about how he was able to play and hit Challenger on really high ping over in Europe while he was playing from Mongolia. So this guy is a solo queue monster. And the question was that we had for FlyQuest, can both of these players translate that success into a competitive FIES environment here at the Academy level? The opening 2 weeks, difficult, but now they're coming into their own as a formidable team. And FlyQuest want to return the favor as they too owed Immortals last time they met.
See if that's going to continue being the story. I kind of want to touch on UG and give a bit of an analogy from the LJL, the Japanese League of Legends scene. Whenever they brought in new Korean imports, there was a meme for a long time called the Korean gacha. Like a gacha game, if you're familiar with that. You open a loot box and see what pops out. A lot of the amateur players have kind of been like that, but I feel like that's a flawed way of looking at, any challenger player that you just kind of pick up, like UG or Rosethorn last time, whereas he was just a solo queue player that was grabbed. It's not that they are, either good or they're bad, right? It's very rarely as simple as that. It's how do we actually find ways to make them look good? And so UG playing styles that he was not necessarily known for, that he was not finding a lot of success on, doesn't mean that he's a weak player. It just means that you haven't found how to enable him.
Exactly.
Or maybe you're not allowing him to enable the rest of your team. And so now that we are seeing the shift coming out from FlyQuest, we're seeing them have a lot more success because they are enabling their newer players.
And there's a large discussion as well that I want to find time to talk about, whether it's during this series or our final series of the day, about the overall pressure that has been put onto Academy results. And I think it's really holding back a lot of the players' development, as they are so concerned about looking good in the standings rather than finding ways to experiment and be enabled, as you said. But in this draft for Game 1, Aatrox, we mentioned it before for Philip, this is kind of a signature pick for him. He gets a chance to lock it in during the first round.
Yeah, very excited to see what Philip is able to do, but I also want to comment on what we were talking about. Are you going to be playing towards Chad? Are you going to be playing towards Arrow right now? Let's looking like Arrow coming out for Immortals, right? Creating a lot of space. The Jarvan going to be a bit more of a supportive role for Immortals, and we'll see what they can do with this because it is a very dive-heavy composition. You're going to be creating a lot of threats that Tomo is going to have to try and deal with. But we'll talk a bit more about the Aatrox when we know what the matchup is, because I feel like this is a character that can be wildly effective if you find some early game advantages, but can also be kind of useless if you aren't able to build up some of that base AD, get that Death Dance, and find the items necessary to sustain tank your way through all these fights.
Immortals, after locking in their jungler of choice, now trying to take away some junglers, not necessarily the Kiana quite yet, but the Lee Sin, something that UG would have early agency on to match that of a Jarvan's heavy ganking playstyle. And then, of course, the impact of the Cataclysm can somewhat be matched if you have a really great flank with the Dragon's Rage onto the backline, or if you just punt away the front line. Zilean, this is also a huge pick for Pretty. And I'm wondering if that indicates that FlyQuest want to hover towards the Hecarim pick, because Zilean was a great answer into the Speedy Horse.
True. When you suddenly have a 99% slow put on top of Hecarim, it makes him very unexciting to play because all the movement speed you get just disappears. But Immortals, it's going to be banning a couple more UG champions, but you have to note the Kiana is still available for UG, and I believe he's really the only one who's been playing that jungler. But Immortals, I'm a little bit surprised that they're picking Jarvan, one, and then not banning the Kiana, because it makes it very, very easy for UG to just get an ult on anybody who happens to be inside the Cataclysm with him. If he's already outside the Cataclysm, well, it's just more terrain for him to play with, and it can, in fact, loop between the Cataclysm and the other walls. So Kiana suddenly looking very, very playable here. The only problem is with Death Dance being so strong, Assassin's stonks going way down.
And if Concept locks in the Surgot, this is going to be a... You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of Worlds from, I believe it was Season 8 or 9, where every top lane matchup, Aatrox, Urgot. What a...
And Sion. Yeah, Aatrox, Urgot, Sion, Aatrox, Urgot, Sion, every single time, back and forth and back and forth. And we'll see what is going to actually be happening, because these are two pocket picks. This is a matchup that has changed quite a bit since that time, because of the way that Urgot's W changes have actually meant that it is going to be permanent now. But we do see the Kiana coming through from the side of FlyQuest. They have a lot of physical damage. They have a lot of opportunities to just sustain tank through both the Jarvan and the Urgot. The only thing they need now is a little bit of magic damage in order to make sure they can actually punch through, and you can't armor stack. And the Rise coming through from Spyrax going to be doing just that.
Now, question for you, Mr. Josh, is...
Mr. Rourke.
Is Spyrax going to be playing the tankier build that we have seen from Rises most of the time? Or do you think that there is more of a necessity to go for a higher damage build, since he is the sole source of AP?
Depends a lot on what Pretty is going to be playing. Okay, with the Orianna coming through, I actually think that he might want to go with the tankier style of build, right? His biggest issue is being bursted out during this fight. You need to make sure that you are able to provide sustained DPS, and I got newsflash for you, Caster Boy. You can't do that when you're dead, right? When you are gone, you cannot do any more DPS. I know it's a crazy concept, but more damage is not always better. So Spyrax just needs to make sure that he can grind things out. They have enough burst that if Chad goes in and he's building something like the Gore Drinker or the Death Dance, between the Kiana, Rise, and Jinx, you should be able to burst him down anyway, get that first reset, and allow the rest of your team to pop off.
Pairing Jinx with any substantial form of burst damage is always a great win con to play around. And the burst may not necessarily be the Rise if he goes for a tankier route, but supreme display of talent. Pretty darn good against most of these squishy members from Immortals. They can invest themselves into some tankier second and third items. Of course, you already mentioned the Death Stance, and probably not the maul this game, as it's only one magic damage source. It's not going to be a high magic output damage from Spyrax respectively. But for the rest of the team, it seems pretty straightforward in how they want to play these 5-on-5s, which is pretty much front to back. Or at least FlyQuest want to be more proactive on the flanking side with their particular set of champions.
Yeah. The other thing that I really like about the FlyQuest roster is oftentimes characters like Jinx from Arcane is going to kind of struggle to keep up with the front line. But once you get that first reset, the movement speed that you have means that you can keep up with Philip. You can keep up with Yuji and make sure that you aren't left behind like a lot of other AD carries would be as Philip tries to dive into the backline. So I really like the composition that FlyQuest have put together. But on the other side, just as we were saying, you're looking to enable Arrow or Chad. This is a game where Chad has the decision-making buttons, but Arrow is going to be the one who needs to actually put out all the DPS because Jarvan is just not going to cut it.
It would be nice. You know, I miss full damage lethality Jarvan days on how.
Yeah, unfortunately, it sucks.
Every time we try to make it work in ARAM, if it can't even work in ARAM, there's no way at all it will work ever on Summoner's Rift. But Immortals are coming out with a little bit of a level 1 strat. Tomo should be able to spot out 3 of the members, and that plan, whatever Immortals had in store, immediately dashed away.
Or is it? Okay, yeah, it is.
Or
okay, it is. Okay. Dreams crushed. No dreams. No hopes and dreams.
Only memes.
Only memes. Don't let your dreams be memes. Is that how that goes? No, it's don't let your dreams be dreams. Thank you, Shia LaBeouf.
See,
as we argue,
that's one of those things where you think about. I don't remember what the paradox is called, where you like remember something and it's not actually the thing you remember it as. Do you know what I'm talking?
Oh, the Mandela effect.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Is it Berenstain Bears or Berenstain
Oh no!
Bears,
We
right?
had this conversation the other day.
It's an A, I think. Yeah, it's an A.
I'm gonna
right?
lose my
we
mind
thought it was
before
an
we
E.
get even into the cast of the game. So let's solve that dilemma for another day.
Hey, look, it's the same thing as the other game.
Is this just an evolution in the support and AD carry meta where you just fight for bush control in the alcove?
Yep. This is the trade that you just kind of make because if the other team doesn't do it, they just lose total bush control. So both teams are now kind of required to do it, and it's one of those funny things where both teams have to opt into it in order to make it happen. And it's the kind of thing that becomes super, super punishable if you are willing to go for some kind of cheese thing and commit your top laner's teleport in order to have an extra member. And I think that's the next evolution of the meta at some point. But until then, we just trade over this bush. FlyQuest have control of it right now, and it means that Joey is going to have to giving up level 2.
Diamond and Joey have a bit of a standoff between them. They just keep walking up in front of each other, but neither one dares throw out an auto attack. It's all about who's going to make the first move before they engage.
Yeah, and Diamond is an expert at this dance, right? Joey relatively new, but Chad coming down, he doesn't want to dance.
Diamond and Tomo are extremely pushed on up, and here comes Chad. Tomo doesn't even have to worry, though, because he immediately burns the flash. Diamond also burned the flash, trying to make some distance in case he needed the extra range for the Dark Passage. But just one visit, and Chad burns 2 Summoner spells.
Yeah, great pathing coming out from Chad, right? We were talking about this with Rosethorn earlier, and oh my gosh, does Concept know? I don't know if they know where Yuji is. I haven't been paying attention to the vision that they actually were able to set up. But now, yeah, Concept knows there is no jungler on the top half, so he probably could have gone for that relatively safely. But Chad, Yuji finding each other once again. Just the adaptability of these early game paths is really impressive to me from a lot of players, because that's how you find these free flashes. That's how you find the same kind of advantages that CLG have typically been finding early on in the game.
Yeah, imagine if Joey had the Thresh, and then we could have seen something similar to the Golden Guardian's destruction of Cloud9's bot lane with the Dark Passage into Jarvan gank. Now, thankfully for FlyQuest, they secured the Thresh, so they denied that sort of play, despite having to burn 2 Summoner spells. They're still maintaining pressure, pushed up in this lane, as Chad already reset, heading toward... Oh, no, wait. I think Chad stayed on the bottom side of the map, and they're looping around once again, but... You know what? My eyes are not working because I clearly could not see that Tomo and Diamond already reset. So, you know, that's a Keck W caster moment right there.
Okay, Mr. Play-by-Play. We'll take you back to the geriatric center here relatively soon. So you can get your eyes checked out.
This is why you don't play Age of Empires for 12 hours a day as a 4-year-old, guys. Your eyes will get damaged over.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, also... Carpal tunnel at 4 is probably a bad thing, but IMT still have Chad chilling out down here. Going to be clearing things out, but you are noticing that Chad opting to go for a lot of these early game plays rather than attempting to farm his jungle out. And so Yuji has a bit of an advantage. And I'm curious to see if Yuji wants to try and do anything early on, because I mean, he's been watching Chad walk around the bottom half of the map for quite a while without getting a whole lot done. So does Yuji just say like, yep, you know, we're good. I'm just going to farm things out. Or is he going to try and go into Chad's part of the jungle? Because at this point, Yuji might be strong enough with an entire serrated Dirk to literally nothing.
As you saw on the screen there, Diamond was looking for maybe burning a flash from Arrow, but Arrow decides to play the game of chicken, walks the correct way, or ending up being the correct way, chose right side. Rest of FlyQuest haven't really found any other gank opportunities, but remember, this is something that Yuji is content with, playing the Kiana. I mean, he has decent ganks at level 3 with the frozen Q empowered by the water or anything part of the river, but it's all about the supreme display of talent. It's about that level 6 power spike. That's when FlyQuest want to make moves.
Yeah, you always have to keep track still at this point. You know, where's Kiki at? Because you can't handle that. And Immortals always have to be really far back. Because yeah, because Diamond still has the Dark Passage, right? And Joey and Arrow need to be careful of all the damage that Yuji can bring to the table.
You gotta keep going now. You've completely shut down my
You
brain.
couldn't handle it either. How are you supposed to handle Kiki
well,
when you
now
can't
I'm
even
just
handle me?
Giants in my head. It's just blasting on full speed. Empty brain, no thoughts now.
True. Well, Yuji, as we saw from previously in the game, just like Armeo, had a pretty significant CS advantage, but wasn't able to do a whole lot with it. And now they're fairly confident that Joey isn't around. But Chad, he doesn't have the EQ.
Yeah, and no mobility. Thankfully, Spyrex isn't that quite big on Rise. He's not putting out, you know, lethal amount of damage.
Yep. You can't act that big just quite yet. I also want to give some props to the Immortals solo laners, because we haven't been talking about them a whole lot. Instead, just watching Chad run around on the bottom side. They are both up a pretty decent amount of CS, right? Just finding these advantages all on their own, because neither jungler has really interacted with either solo lane just quite yet. Chad has, like, you know, done some charades, just like, oh, am I gonna come mid? Nah. Am I gonna do it now? Nah, you're good. But that's really about it. Otherwise, it's almost been entirely bottom side focused for Chad thus far.
And while Immortals still have members that will scale up into the later parts of the game, it's not the greatest thing that Chad wasn't able to find anymore outside of the 2 flash spells from Tomo and Diamond. A little bit of a 2v2 all-in engage, just as Arrow and Joey are trying to force this wave to crash under the tower so it doesn't get frozen on them. Tomo and Diamond will have to weather the storm for now. But even despite the summoners being burned, Tomo and Diamond never lost in terms of CS value. That's pretty... Don't worry, that shockwave was intended, just trying to get this wave reset as he is out of mana and wants the base.
Yeah. That's one of the big things, right? The fact that Tomo and Diamond are back to having their flashes back up without getting punished is a testament to how strong of a bottom lane these guys have typically been. One of the most experienced lanes that we have currently in Academy, as both these guys have had a lot of time playing in the competitive scene. So the rest of the game is kind of going to be really telling on how these teams are going to be looking to play, right? We have to see how Immortals are going to be playing around the fact that Orianna still has this massive power trough coming up very soon, where she doesn't really do a whole lot between levels like 9 and 13. Because you are so reliant on having enough AP to make your shockwave relevant that it makes it very difficult for Immortals to go anything. But as immediately as I say that, Chad's going to be starting up this dragon because they see that Yuji was doing the Rift Hold on the other side. So props to Immortals for being able to trade objectives on the map rather than just giving things up for free.
With the dragon secured, Immortals will not quite put FlyQuest on the timer, though we have seen both of the teams in Dignitas and Team Liquid respectively faced in their prior series. But FlyQuest now have this tool that they can use to break for first brick, and we do have a pause. Not sure what happened. Maybe one of the players' hamster wheels got a little tired. Have to
make sure you feed your hamsters daily
so
you can actually get things through. Don't know if we're still playing from home today or not, but it is still a situation where the game pretty steady right now, right? You get some small gold leads coming out from individual CS leads, right? The top lane is kind of equalized. The mid lane is still slightly in favor of Pretty, where he's up about 14 CS, which is about 2 waves, which is not nothing, but considering the gold lead is currently in favor of FlyQuest so far, it's not a whole lot more than nothing.
We haven't really seen a big play from FlyQuest either, right? And to be fair,
Right.
Immortals have really had only one set play, which was Chad coming down towards this bottom side of the map and getting some pressure in the flashes being burned. Outside of that, very tame game, very controlled game, and both teams, to be fair, have scaling pieces, so they don't mind the game going later on. I would have imagined that Immortals would want to have taken advantage of Chad's early playmaking agency, just thanks to Jarvan versus Kiana. But
Yeah.
I imagine that the next big fight is going to be either around the Rift Herald setup that FlyQuest want to go for and see if they can catch out any stragglers, or if Immortals want to force a response.
I like Immortals being aggressive, right? I feel like Chad tends to play better that way when he's the one setting the tempo
Right.
on the map. And it looks like we're going to be getting back into game relatively soon here. But it is a situation where a lot of their players need to be in a position where they are going to be strong later on in the game. And a big part of that comes from being strong now.
You guys can't see it, but seeing some banter and trash talk from the players. They're trying to ask, hey, what happened? Didn't ask. Checking stream.
Didn't ask. Yeah. You got to make sure, it's like, got to see where the jungler is, and we know where they are. It is still coming out of base for UG, but the thing about this composition that I'm going to be paying attention to is how Chad chooses to play forward, because this composition isn't built around him, but as we said earlier, he is the primary decision maker. He's going to be the one who actually has to go for the go button. He's the one who gets everything started, and Arrow is going to be the one that they are going to be relying on to beat the bulk of their damage later on in the game. So the dichotomy, right? We had a conversation yesterday about being stronger versus winning.
Ah,
Right?
yes.
This is a situation of like, who is your carry versus who is your decision maker, and they're not always the same thing, although they usually are.
UG in this case, he is damage and a decision maker. And look, they find Chad
Got him.
caught out in rotation. No chance to flash away. First blood for FlyQuest.
Love the trigger pull coming out from UG, knowing that there's not a whole lot that Chad can do if you end up locking him down. There's nothing you can do while stunned as the Jarvan, so his only real chance was like trying to use the ultimate and then flash out. That is so hard to do because you have to know every single step along the way, and it means that UG now gets to come down towards the bottom side of the map. He was spotted on a ward, so they know he's here, but it's going to be creating a lot of pressure for the bottom lane of FlyQuest.
Teleport is technically available for Pretty in concept in case FlyQuest decide to go a little crazy and dive Joey and Arrow. I imagine that would not be the play. UG was thinking about just letting this wave crash in, get it low enough so that they could take the first brick in one fell swoop. But Arrow and Joey do a decent enough of a job to hold back the minions wave and make sure that Tomo and Diamond don't put it at a point where the Rift Herald can take it out.
Ends up being just a lot of time spent down there on the bottom side, where both Chad and UG knew where each other were, but Chad trying to chill out in the mid lane, and he is getting pinged. It looks like FlyQuest have a good idea that he could be just hanging out there, and with no objectives to play for on the bottom side other than this turret, Pretty and Chad just running down, just going to try and find a way onto Tomo and Diamond. With the ultimate available, Chad presents a much larger dive threat. Fortunately, with the flashes up for both Tomo and Diamond, that threat is similarly reduced. And now, Mark, you know how you were having issues with giants getting stuck in your head? During the interview with JJ, he was talking about the restaurant name, and he was like, I want something to do with, world and Juan. I still have Wayne's World stuck in my head. Juan's World, Juan's World, already on. Excellent.
And you can tell that nothing is going to be happening for the next 2 minutes when Josh makes a Wayne's World reference on the cast.
Yeah. Dude, all the Zoomers are sitting there just like, what are you talking about?
Oh, man, they're missing out. It was a great film back in the day.
Yeah.
Shout.
And SNL skits, too. Go
Yeah,
back.
true. At this point, we haven't really seen much action between these two top laners as they're starting to duke it out a little
This is our
bit.
first
Well,
fight.
Philip might actually be in a bad spot just as we say that flashing the fear beyond death. will not get hooked into the grinder by Concept, but now it's a flash advantage for Immortals.
Yeah, this is exactly how this matchup has historically gone, right? It is knife's edge when you guys actually fight, and you need to be correct about whether or not you win those, because neither champion, when they're piloted correctly, has a whole lot of exciting things to do. It's really hard for Concept to dodge out on Philip's Qs, and it is basically impossible for Philip to dodge out on any of the damage that Concept does except for the ultimate. So now that we see the play action flip to the bottom side of the map, Immortals going to be able to defend this, but it is going to be a couple of plates going over. And the question now, FlyQuest have 15 seconds left before they need to get their backs in order to try and fight for the Dragon at maximum capacity. But with the Gale Force already completed, it doesn't look like they need to get this back off. They just want to stick around, and they might even be able to take the turret before the Dragon happens.
We'll see how many members FlyQuest and Immortals want to dedicate to the Dragon fight as well, because Philip and Concept, the Dragon will be coming on.
Oh, look at Yuji.
Oh, man. Yuji is looking for the long flank in case anyone from Immortals, that's not Joey, because Joey's a little bit on the tankier side, was staying around trying to defend this turret. You can see how badly FlyQuest just want to knock it down. You could breathe on it. Just a couple more auto attacks, and that would take it down.
Okay, well, Yuji ends up backing
HP.
away, so 67. Too short, unlucky. But Tomo is already going to be here. They're going to try and fight for it.
Flash forward from Diamond into the FLYA. They're looking to route off
Kill
Arrow.
the turret.
Just kill the
Hit
turret.
it,
No
hit it.
turret shots available, and no teleport available from Pretty. FlyQuest come up huge.
That's a great play coming out from FlyQuest. I love the decisiveness. Once again, they understand that Arrow is going to be the bulk of Immortals' damage, and you just need to make sure he doesn't have any fun this game. And with so many members left around, Immortals not going to be able to contest this Dragon whatsoever. Chat can try and go for a Miracle Steal, but it's a miracle at this point. They have so much control for FlyQuest.
Teleports are unleashed as well, but Concept doesn't have his. So Immortals, they know that if they were wanting to flip for this fight, it could end in disaster with an Aatrox coming in with a World Ender on top of it. So they succeed the Dragon. We're getting portals in this game, Josh. You know I love portals.
Portals. Yeah, great stuff. I'm sad Maximilian was not able to go for anything, but luckily Concept was able to take away the blue while Philip was able to back away. It's something we didn't even notice. But overall, this game definitely going in favor of FlyQuest, and a huge part of it has been Yuji's ability to move around the map, out-farm, wait for Chad to do things, and just abuse any opportunities that Immortals have been giving over. And I don't expect that we're going to see a whole lot of change coming out for a little while, because Pretty is just not very strong yet.
It's not the super 3K Elo Shockwave point of the game where you're doing a ton of
that's
burst.
a reference. Yeah. Pharrellin Lord, dude. Again, we're going back. This is a nostalgia trip kind of day. Pharrellin Lord, back in the day, the only player to ever hit 3,000 Elo in League of Legends. Probably not the best player. Like, he was pretty decent, but still, one of those things that he's going to be the only person to have ever made that accomplishment. But as we get back into our game, we're seeing the map has flipped upside down. Turned upside down. As we see the Fresh Princess moving up towards the top side of the map. And just as we saw FlyQuest able to pick up the bottom lane turret with the Rift Herald, now that they have the second one, I would not be surprised if Yuji wanted to come back up and continue spoon-feeding Tomo with gold.
I mean, the way we've set it out, top side is now Bel Air. And I want to be in Bel Air.
Yeah.
That's where all the good stuff is.
Me too.
Flash aggressively forward from Concept. He lands the Fear Beyond Death. He wins the 1v1 easily.
Easy. Yeah. Oh, does he might also win the... Oh, there's two people there. You don't win that.
And flash forward from Yuji. Doesn't even need the supreme display of talent. Whoa, whoa, whoa. It got pretty damn close for being traded out. Concept almost winning out against two people. Solar Flare and Cataclysm locks up Diamond, pops the stopwatch. Whistle will buy some time. Super Mega Death Rocket, not quite enough damage thanks to the Aftershock Keystone, keeping Joey alive. But Chad has to keep his distance. Tomo, despite not being supremely far ahead, still has enough damage to force him away.
Yeah, they don't have enough burst to get them so close to the turret. And once again, a small advantage coming over to FlyQuest. The only thing they've been missing out on is the fact that I don't know if Philip was fully prepared for this matchup, right? Philip, relatively new player, ends up getting caught by the surprise flash coming out from Concept. And it is just the kind of damage where Concept is so tanky with his Hull Breaker in these isolated 1v1s that Philip can't bring out the damage just quite yet, right? He has to wait, and once you get caught, You can't dodge damage from Urgot. It's just a matter of, are you correct with how much damage you are able to put out?
To take a moment to pause here.
Moment of silence for Philip.
Yeah, he'll learn. Yeah, I don't know if he was... I'm pretty sure he was still playing League, and he's probably experienced the Aatrox and Urgot matchup, but it's been quite some time since no one really plays these champions anymore outside of these two, respectively, in Season 12. Yeah. But we're heading into the 18-minute mark and a minute and a half away from the third dragon of the game. Despite the solo kill from Concept, Philip still managing to find some time to push out this bottom wave. And now it's up to FlyQuest to get some time to push out these waves and find aggressive vision control into the bottom quadrant of Immortals so that they can safely take the next dragon.
Yeah, Immortals definitely need to start putting a counter clock onto the members of FlyQuest, right? Because Immortals, with the fact that Pretty has their first item, he is so much more enabled in this game. And he's one of the players that we've been looking at as having one of the major impacts in Immortals wins, right? We were talking about Chad versus Era, but Pretty, they've kind of gone underneath our radar, at least so far today. But there's a reason why this guy was looking so good, why we were giving so many props to him at the beginning of the season, because he makes plays.
Diamond has Flash available, but Immortals trying to take this opportunity to round him off. Diamond realizes that it's a little too late to pop the Summoner spell, so doesn't use it. Super Mega Death Rocket coming in from afar. Tomo doesn't get a chance to really contribute, but FlyQuest will manage to get out despite the collapse from Immortals, but there's still two members in the jungle. UG already using Supreme Display of Talent at Spyrex. No Flash is available, but it's not enough for Immortals to collapse on them.
But at the same time, Philip on the opposite side of the map going to be free hitting the bottom lane turret, and these turrets are worth so much money to whoever is there. 600 gold, 2 kills worth of gold just going right on over to Philip, and that's going to be giving him a lot of pressure and a lot of control over this bottom lane side of the map where the dragon is going to be spawning. Spyrex still has a teleport, and while the top lane turret does go down for the members of Immortals, they are unlikely to be able to really contest this as the Rift Herald gets dropped mid, UG hops over the wall, and they are in prime position to take everything they want.
The Rift Herald probably won't get much mileage here in the mid lane as multiple members of Immortals will be here to stop it, but the Rift Herald detracts from Immortals from being able to answer in the dragon. And now, FlyQuest are 2 dragons away from Soul.
Nice,
and wow, Immortals actually don't get a chance to stop it. I guess Chad wanted to see if they could bait out Tomo stepping a little too far forward, punishing the fact that he didn't have Flash, but no opportunity found.
Yeah, I also want to go back to something we were talking about at the beginning. I was not entirely correct because Spyrex, we'll talk about that later. Yeah, we'll talk about it now. Spyrex going with the Seraphs, not going with the Fimbulwinter. It's really hard to tell which direction they're going to be going beforehand. Is Yuji just fighting Joey?
Oh, well, I guess Joey was trying to screen for Pretty and make sure that he doesn't get caught out. He is pretty damn tanky. Shockwave is huge. Cataclysm follows up beautifully. And the rest of the members of FlyQuest are now on the run. But Chad still has enough HP to follow up on the damage. Pretty is giving him all the shields and heals that he needs to keep on the run. Spyrex will be the last one to fall. FlyQuest get routed.
And that's what we're saying. Pretty makes plays. He's got the Orianna, he's got the damage, and now they're confident to even go for this Baron all at once. Philip, the only person left on the map. Now, to his credit, he might be able to stop this. He has a lot of pressure with the World Ender. He just needs to buy a little bit more time for everybody else on the map. But Philip, coming in, we'll see if he can try and stop this up against 3 members with only 1
There's
ultimate.
no smite available for Immortals either. Chad went down in the fight, overextending. And Philip, all he needs to...
Got one.
Whoa, that's a lot of damage. He just takes out Arrow. He might look for another one onto Immortals, but Philip has already done his job. He stops them from doing the Baron, but the fact that he got 1 on the trade, that's pretty darn good.
Let's go, Philip. Philip and Pretty coming out with big plays back to back, and we're right back to where we started. Now, this play started off pretty weird, right? Yuji finding Joey, and Joey doesn't react immediately. And it looks pretty decent until the Shockwave Cataclysm combo just in the opposite side just destroys the health bars of FlyQuest because I don't think they were ready for the amount of burst and the amount of trigger pull that Immortals were going to be able to put out. And once you are able to chase down multiple people, go for the Baron, you force Philip to come in for the teleport. Unfortunately for Immortals, Philip's pretty good at this champion.
When he finds the moments to participate in those team fights,
Wah, wah.
That's a bummer.
Wah, wah. Well, Yeah, when you put people on champions that they're good at, they are going to have a good time. And Concept now not having a great time.
Yeah, you know who's pretty good at the Kiana? Yuji is. However, Concept also pretty darn good at it. Urgot almost turns it around once again. Yuji chunked to sub 50% HP. Chad was ready for the round, but as a Jarvan, he's not going to have enough damage to take him out by himself.
Yeah, and Spyrax now, again, going towards even more damage with a needlessly large rod, can build towards a Rabadon's or a Shadow Flame. Is going to be a very difficult cookie for Immortals to try and crack here, as FlyQuest, totally in control of the map at the moment, is that there's nothing for them to actually push down here on the bottom side until you get towards the base of Immortals. And I'm not sure Spyrax is strong enough to do that all on his own just quite yet, because as the Baron is on the field, it is something where there's a lot of pressure is going to be put on it, because Immortals can do it really quickly as long as Arrow has red-white. Oh, he just lost it. Now he's only got white.
He's got the green gun, though. Long range.
True.
Yuji doesn't have Supreme Display of Talent. Super Mega Death Rocket already used, but it was on full HP bar member, so it doesn't get that much damage.
Here.
However, enough burst and damage.
Yuji.
Pretty with another nice shockwave. Finds Yuji. Allows Concept to pick him up with the Fear Beyond Death on to Diamond as well. Chad gets routed off by Philip, and now he's in the middle of all 4 members from the rest of the members of Immortals. Spyrax and Tomo have to be on the run. Joey looking for the long flank. Oh, Portal Gaming, baby! They completely turn it around. Tomo has nowhere to go. And Spyrax, I know Philip was able to stop them from doing the Baron. Can you do something similar? But it might be a little too difficult.
Still too much to be asking of Spyrax right now. No flash, and Immortals still going to just be hitting this down. Once again, very similar play. Philip was able to stop it, but Spyrax will not be able to do it this time. The Baron goes over to Immortals, and this is probably our closest game and our most back and forth game so far today, Mark. We're seeing both teams having big plays, and it's not Chad, it's not Arrow that we're having to pay attention to. It's Pretty. Watch how effective this guy has been playing everything. His Shockwave finding 2 people once again, beating up on the poor Kiki. And after that, I just said we're not paying attention to Chad, but also look at what he does to Tomo here. He knocks him up and then knocks him back into the rest of the team with the Blast Cone. Not a whole lot for Tomo to do when you are that attacked by a Jarvan.
That reminds me of some of the Kung Fu movies where they use their terrain to their advantage, and they just find the stray pots and pans. You got to do anything you can. What is this teleport? Where Spyrax is going to the top side of the map, trying to create pressure on the split push end. I guess FlyQuest saying, you know what, there's no way that we can contest the dragon that is spawned, and the rest of Immortals pushing FlyQuest out of the safety of their jungle quadrant, trying to make use of this Baron buff. But Spyrax trying to see if he can maybe go for a base race. He just round warped the minion wave. He's accelerating it.
Okay. He will have to recall at some point because they are losing a ton, and Rise, unfortunately, does not do a lot of damage to structures. And now Philip trying to do something to keep them alive. He has a Death Dance. He's very tanky. Unfortunately, there's a lot of damage coming out from the side of Immortals, and it's coming out from range. So with the Baron buff slowly beating up this turret, it's going to just be a matter of time, as Spyrax is already back. He's got a lot of HP, but will he actually be able to do the damage to keep these turrets alive?
At least one of these inhibitor towers are going to go down, and it looks like it just might be both, because Philip cannot stop Concept by himself. Middle inhibitor will fall as the rest of the members of FlyQuest completely seceded over to Immortals. They pivot towards the bottom side, seeing if they can prevent at least one of these inhibitors from going down, but the Baron buff is just too strong for Immortals, and they easily take down most of the base of FlyQuest.
And they're even going to get the Dragon on the backside, so great usage of the Baron. FlyQuest thought that Immortals were going to take the Baron and call it a day, but no, they wanted to get even more than that, and it ends up punishing the play that Spyrax ended up trying to go for. Spyrax tried to make a gamble based on what he's expecting Immortals to do, and Immortals flipping it up. That adaptability is what we love to see. There was a conversation, I think it was with TSM, saying that
no way.
That you have to start thinking about what it is that you're doing at this level of play. And Immortals showing a lot of cognitive ability and a lot of presence of mind in their understanding of when X happens, we have to switch to Y.
I held my breath there for a second. That's like the second time where we've seen a Super Mega Death Rocket come in. We're like, oh, please, please, please don't let this deal happen. We saw too many of these in 2021. Oh, man. Joey, I like it. Unfortunately, it doesn't land it, but I like it.
The energy's there. A for effort coming through. But, you know, we actually need to find some of those plays. I don't even know if they get him if he lands the E, to be entirely honest. Like, maybe it's a flash trade, but as Immortals start moving towards the top half of the map, we are now seeing Orianna thoroughly online, and it's not Chad, it's not Arrow, it's the Greek guy that we got to be paying a lot of attention to, because he has total control. Prodromos, right? It's in the name.
I believe so.
He's a pro.
Yeah. I'm had to look back at the last name. It sounded correct.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure his first name is Prodromos, which we've already established is one of the sickest names.
Oh
that
yeah, absolutely.
Our players have. Also, Chad, Maximilian, like, these guys are pretty much bossing up, but now they're going to be bossing their way through, and FlyQuest going to have to see if they can stand up for workers' rights and unionize a little bit.
Well, one way to do that is just to pile drive onto Concept, but he just flashes over the wall, creates space. Chad is here. He might have gotten locked up. A lot of burst damage to bring a death rocket.
Of engagement.
Not enough, but what? I don't know what he got burned from. Must have been the red buff from Telmo. And now the auto attack has given him a little bit of time and a little bit of movement speed to reset on over to the top side of the map. They can rout off the remaining members of Immortals. This will be huge for FlyQuest, but they have to do it quickly because there are super minion waves pouring into the base through the mid lane and the bottom wave. There's still some time. Portal's being taken by FlyQuest, going for the long run, trying to cut him off at the choke point of the top side of the map. Watch for the shockwave. This can be a make or break moment of defending the members of Immortals and making sure they get out. But Arrow's just not as fast as the rest of the members of Immortals. Pretty gets routed off. Supreme display of talent from Yuji, but it's not enough burst to detract him. Shockwave lands on a one.
Okay, that's one.
Looking for Yuji, but he dashes on out. Can't get alive, but a Concept will still go down. Tomo on the run, tries to find Pretty, but he makes it out.
Wow, they are taking the maximum here. They're taking everything they could. Once they found Chad, once they denied the engage coming out from Immortals, they were just able to chase everything down. And I need to see a replay because I still don't know what it was that actually killed Chad the first time around. But we're going to be jumping way ahead. So watch how they end up playing this. Tomo, the main character of this fight, recognizing that there is the frontline 2 split coming in for Immortals. Tomo able to run down individual members, and of course the resets from Jinx enabling him to get so much damage just in time for them to save both Nexus turrets.
That was so close. Immortals were trying to stall it as long as they could because they definitely could have had a chance to punish and gotten more out of FlyQuest's base. It's honestly pretty miraculous that it didn't go as long for FlyQuest as it could have. Now FlyQuest have some time to stabilize their position on the Rift just before this next dragon spawns.
Okay, minute 30. The inhibitors should be back up fairly soon for the members of FlyQuest. And again, game going back and forth. So we were looking at Pretty as being deathless, but now Spyrax gets out again.
Oh, those
boy.
dark passages have been pretty close.
No pun intended, right?
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what ends up happening. I was just going to set up, we were looking at Pretty as one of the primary carries for Immortals. Oh my god!
That's a lot of damage. Moonlight Vigil not going to be enough to finish off Spyrax. Arrow thinking about finishing him off with the Gale Force, but doesn't get him quite in range. Philip in a 1v1 with Concept, forced to use the World Ender. Concept holding on to Fear Beyond Death, and all that pressure from the Shockwave. Yes, it didn't kill anyone from FlyQuest, but it forced him away, and now Immortals have this Baron guaranteed.
Dude, I guarantee that the comms coming out from the Immortals were like,
No
what
way.
are they doing? Right? Okay.
Ah!
Okay, we're good. Yeah, but I guarantee Immortals, especially Pretty, was like, what? Like, you can't just Realm Warp in front of me. Like, not when you're in range of my Shockwave. And now Immortals, they don't really care about this dragon. They are only 2 to the soul. So they just want to push things in and make sure that FlyQuest are on the back foot this entire time. And once you get all these pushed in, once you start taking inhibitors, if it's too close, then you can start looking for things. But Yuji on the backside caught.
Beautiful stuff from Chad, anticipating a potential flank with the Portal Gaming
man.
accessible. Cataclysm comes out, takes a huge chunk out of Yuji's health pool, has to go back to the fountain and see if he can get back on time before Immortals start up a fight.
Okay, FlyQuest should be able to defend this for now. Tomo does a lot of damage at 4 items complete on the Jinx. At the same time, with all their inhibitors back up, Immortals, they need to be able to do more than just siege this top lane turret because there is enough wave clear between the Rabadons from Spyrex and everything that Tomo has already built up. So Concept needs to be able to push another wave safely, but he doesn't feel comfortable to allow his team to do that all on their own. They're going to be crashing waves at different times, so there's a possible 4v5.
UG doesn't have flash. Realm War comes out. They look for the flank. It's just Philip right on top. The shockwave immediately denies him. Supreme display of talent lands on the 3 members, but pretty beautifully timed on the stopwatch. Denies a lot of the damage. No resets will come through for Tomo. Fear Beyond Death lands.
Tomo.
Does he go in for the play? Joey popping his own stopwatch, but now Tomo finds a reset. There are multiple low HP bar members. Can Tomo get in range? He has movement speed. Flashing
one more.
Finds a shutdown on a pretty. Looking for
Run
more
him
damage.
down.
Tomo will
Get
save
him, boy.
so many multiple health members. Triple
Get him,
boy.
boy.
Kill. Tomo has the movement speed. Can he find the close in the distance on the Chad? But he has to
One
flash
more.
away. Tomo, just one more auto attack would do the trick, but Chad will be able to make it out alive.
Oh my god, FlyQuest, I thought it was all over when Philip got
still might
instantly
be.
bursted. Oh, it might be over in the other way. FlyQuest might be winning.
Spyrex has teleported towards the bottom side of the map. They're trying to Herald Tomo and Diamond on over. They have a minion wave. Spyrex zoning off Chad to protect the minion wave and allowing it to get the full benefit. A teleport coming in from Philip as well.
Oh my god, no way!
On the carries. Pretty and Arrow might not
No
come
way.
off in time. FlyQuest are going to try to end it here right now. Everfrost Prime locks down Chad.
Tomo's alive.
Oh
He's
my
alive.
God. FlyQuest. Tomo goes down, but they still take out the remaining members of Immortals, but it still might be enough. Immortals might have saved the game because without Tomo, they cannot evaporate these turrets. They have to use the Realm Warp, and they have to get out.
Okay, wow, crazy back and forth between both teams. Both sides of that so close to actually ending the game. They got the burst onto Philip, but then Tomo stepping up, running down Immortals, and then ending up dying at the very end. It's back and forth, but we have returned to normalcy. Mark, the game is once again even, but everybody in this game, their hearts are pounding so hard back and forth.
Are you kidding me? What?
Oh, man. Who says League of Legends is boring, man? This is what we come here for. Everybody has been popping off back and forth, and I would love to say that there is a 1 assist difference between Spyrex and Pretty as we are right on back into the action. No breaks on this train. Everybody's going to be ready to go, but okay, let's calm down. Spyrex, 4-1 and 9.
How can you
Pretty,
calm down, Josh?
4-1 and 8. Because we're paused. There's nothing happening.
Oh my goodness. That was bro, I was about to die.
Look, normally something that you don't think about a whole lot in a game of League of Legends is where the fights are happening and how they affect the ability to end the game, right? Because Tomo chased Chad so far, it put him and Diamond in a spot where they could actually get from the top lane inhibitor turret for FlyQuest to the bottom lane inhibitor turret for Immortals, right? Normally, that takes like 40 to 50 seconds to traverse. But because the fight dragged on so long and Jinx moved so fast, he got halfway there before the fight was even over. And with a teleport available from Spyrex, the tempo cheater suddenly is able to create a lot more pressure on the map. And now, with the Baron 2 minutes and 30 seconds out, Immortals and FlyQuest, if they want to go for any play, it's a bit of a Hail Mary in order to try and make something happen because it is so difficult for either of these teams to siege.
And Tomo is full build. Arrow has not been able to match up in terms of damage because of how much pressure FlyQuest put onto the bottom lane. So during the early parts of the game, it allowed Tomo to accelerate, and that last quadra kill, allowing him to now be at his strongest point in the game. In fact, the only thing that he could do is if he wanted to sell the Zerkers and buy another crit item. But I think he's actually at full crit already with his setup.
Yeah, 20% crit on every single one of his items. Like, you could choose to go for another Zeal item, but I think that's actually not as good these days as it was in previous seasons. But do note that FlyQuest faster to the plate, trying to find Concept and Chad. That's room to play with talent.
Go for it. Chad and Concept locked up. Philip over the wall. Super Mega Death Rocket. Not going to be enough damage that takes him out. And there's no real objective to play for on the bottom side of the map, nor on the top side, because both Baron will be spawning in 1 minute, and the next Dragon is another 3. But I respect the play from FlyQuest, just trying to see if they could have picked off a couple members and ended the game off of the pick.
So I said to calm down a little bit, right? There's, even with that play where they thought they had caught out multiple members, they're so tanky, right? We are in the late game, but I also want to point out a couple of crucial differences. One, Tomo has 150 CS over Arrow. 2, because of that, and because of all the kills he is up 2 entire items on the enemy AD carry. He does so much more damage, and he's doing it at a greater range that Arrow has a lot of pressure on him to step up, because we were setting him up as one of the big carries for this game, as somebody that had a lot of tools and needed to be able to play to his full potential that we know he's able to do. He's not meeting our expectations just quite yet, but I think he still has opportunities to do so, just because Aphelios on 3 items does enough damage to a lot of these members anyway. It's just a matter of how quickly you do it.
You're also looking to members like Pretty and Concept, who have been performing pretty damn well this game. Pretty being the saving grace.
Look at Kiki.
Oh, a flank. UG was looking for it. Immortals, though, see him before they get a chance to close the distance. Immortals backing their way on up over to the Baron. Going back into Fog of War. Watch for how Concept or Joey finds an angle to engage onto someone from FlyQuest. Tomo is the person that Immortals have to stop from being able to get resets and looking for the closing moments of this game. And FlyQuest are going to try to get their first pick onto the mid wave, see if they can have priority.
Yeah, Arrow trying to get better guns right now. Purple, green, not the most exciting thing. There you go. He's got the flamethrower ready, so he has a ton of burst available when he actually throws out the ultimate. And also has another engage tool for the members of Immortals, something that they were kind of missing for a little while. I don't want to say missing. They have Jarvan and Leona. They can get fights started whenever they want. But having something to set it up to be guaranteed is very exciting. And now FlyQuest, after pushing in the mid lane, are moving over towards the Baron. They want to get the teleport out of Concept, but they will gladly take this.
Philip is trying to be a gatekeeper right now. Oh, Chad, does he find it? No, not
He's too
in
late.
time. UG
He's
takes him out, and Chad can't get it back over the wall. They rode him out. That's one member gone from Immortals. The Realm Warp is coming through. Watch for who takes it. It's Philip and Tomo. Wait, Tomo's right in the front line. Pretty just takes him out with the shot.
Tomo!
What the hell was that? Immortals now have an opportunity to turn it around, but it could be enough damage from the remaining members of FlyQuest. Spyrex and Diamond.
It's all
Can they
Pretty.
turn around? But it's all down to Pretty. Can he be the hero to save this game for Immortals?
Okay,
but
Concept.
It might be Concept instead.
What?
Because he's still beefy enough to take down the remaining members. Immortals will still live despite having multiple members go down at the beginning of the fight, and they're going to look to close out the game.
This is what we love about Academy, back and forth and back and forth. Both teams capitalizing on mistakes. Tomo going through the Realm Warp gets himself cut. He's the one member that FlyQuest need to have alive this entire time. He is so much of their DPS, but look at the impossibility of Immortals trying to push their way through Baron minions with an Urgot, with a Hole Breaker, and Frostfire Gauntlet. It's just not happening. So instead, they're going to try and find a different prize for themselves. It's going to be the Hextech Dragon, but it's not even the Soul at 39 minutes. Both teams 3 dragons apiece at this point, and this game is still going. Bro.
I can't. I don't know what to expect from this game anymore. I thought for sure that this would have been the moment, but then this Pretty is able to counteract beautifully with a shockwave right on top. I mean, I'm flabbergasted.
You gotta criticize a little bit of the decision making here, right? We were praising Tomo for his great play earlier, but you cannot be sending your squishy members through a Realm Warp. You just can't do it, right? That's why Philip was going through, but Tomo getting caught, dying instantly allows Immortals to have a way back into the game, because there's no resets coming out. And once you have no resets, once you don't have easy ways to kill Concept, it's all about how tanky this front line is and how impossible it is for the other members of FlyQuest to do anything about it. So Immortals have another half item onto Arrow.
Okay, but Joey just might get locked out. Okay,
it's just gone.
FlyQuest find a pick once again, and this time, no Realm Warps for Tomo. You are staying with the team.
True. Yes. Hopefully.
Please.
But Now, okay. Now, as we return to a spot where Joey is dead for 30 more seconds, this is still a difficult counter siege for the members of FlyQuest, right? Arrow has plenty of wait for it if they go for it, but instead they're trying to find Spyrex.
Oh, and Spyrex has to use the Zonya's Hourglass to cancel out the Shockwave,
The
but
base!
now that leaves the base open. Arrow gets routed off. Concept can't do enough to save him. And now FlyQuest might just have the window to close out our first game of this series.
2 inhibitors going down. It's all on Pretty. He has no shockwave and almost nothing to do.
And Tomo will just run him down. He flashes over the flag and drag combo from Chad. Tomo firing a super mega death rocket right in his face. FlyQuest will finally end this game. A back and forth banger from both FlyQuest and Immortals. But in the end, FlyQuest will be the ones that stand tall.
Look, Mark, was this the cleanest game of League of Legends? No. Was it a banger of a game? Absolutely, man. Back and forth. We saw big plays coming out from both sides, but at the end of the day, it is FlyQuest who take game 1. Game 1 of our series. We're only halfway done. It is absolutely crazy to see how these two teams are playing back and forth, and I love to see how much confidence and how much willingness everybody has to go forward and try and make themselves look good.
Yeah, you cannot tell me that Academy is not exciting after watching that. Like, sure, as you said before, is it the cleanest gameplay? No. But is it as entertaining as hell? Absolutely. I was literally about to die on the edge of my seat. So many moments where I'm about to pull out my hair because I'm like, what is about to happen? I can't keep track of all the craziness. But for us here on the casting desk, we're very, very ready to throw it to a break because we need to get Kangas back in here for our halftime show to see how he reacted to the play. So we'll see you in a few minutes.